Hello students, welcome to MyAbhyas. I am Suparna here, your biology faculty, and today we are going to start with the second chapter of our 11th standard. I am very excited to start with the new chapter. We discussed the first chapter with living world. I hope you remembered that. We discussed that how an organism is called as living, or how a thing is called as living thing and a non-living thing. We also discussed in the previous chapter that how can we classify an organism into different levels of hierarchies. We discussed there how can we name an organism. That is about binomial nomenclature. All these discussions were done in the previous chapter. I hope you have understood it, as you are very smart students, and thank you for choosing MyAbhyas because you are here with me, Suparna, to go through with the very wonderful journey of biology. Let us start with the class 11th next chapter. So let us see now what is stored in this chapter, that is second chapter of first year. Okay, before I go to the next chapter explanation, let me tell you about the weightage of this particular chapter. This chapter is named as biological classification. What is this chapter? We are going to talk about the chapter called as biological classification now. How many marks are going to come in your exam? There will be only 2 marks that is allotted from this chapter. But never ever ignore a chapter because of its less marks. Any chapter, whatever is given in your textbook, is very, very important for whatever exams you are going to face in your life, whatever theoretical part you are going to know, and so on. So, though biological classification is a small chapter, looks like a small chapter, and the marks allotted is also less over here, but that's okay because that 2 marks also plays a very important role at some point of time when it comes. Imagine when it comes for a marks of like 0.5, 0.25, and on that you lose a rank. Does it happen to you ever that you are competing in an exam and you have done very good in the exam, but just before you see your answer paper, just 1 or 2 answers would be slightly wrong and you would have lost that 1 or 2 marks, and because of that you have lost that rank what you are holding it for a longer time, just missed. Why it has happened? Because we would have ignored that 1 or 2 marks which would have fetched easily. So that is what is the importance of short number also. So here we are with the chapter number 2, that is biological classification. The tree over here actually tells us about the biological classification, how classification of organisms are done. Organisms I'm not telling about plants and animals, okay na? So I'm going to talk about in general that how we are going to classify the organisms. We'll be talking about Protista, Monera, then we'll talk about fungi, Plantia and Animalia will be studied separately as another next chapter, okay? So basically in this particular chapter in biological classification, we'll learn how to classify organism, which are the scientists who has given a great contribution on this field, and we'll be talking about Protista and Monera basically over here, okay? So these 2 are our center of attraction this time. Okay, let me start with the slideshow so that will be easy for you. Let us start with the introduction part. Now, different scientists has tried to classify organism from ancient time. They were always curious to know what exactly the animals and plants are having so many rich varieties in the nature. So what they did, they started dividing the organisms in different ways. And some great scientists were there who contributed a lot on this matter. And let us learn about one of them over here in the first slide, and some few more I will be telling you in the future slides. The first scientist was Aristotle. Aristotle was the first scientist who has made an attempt to classify an organism in a scientific manner. He tried to classify an organism in a scientific manner. The approach, what he has shown at that time, was very perfect. How you want to know? He classified a simple morphological characters. For example, he classified the plants on the basis of their height into trees, shrubs, and herbs. So on the basis of the trees, how many years they are alive, that is either their long duration of time, they're alive for a longer duration of time, or they're dying in a very short period of time. On that note, he has classified them into trees, shrubs and herbs. Okay, so this was a very scientific way of approach, approach for this particular thing. So what are the three classification when we talk about plants? Plants are classified into three categories, that is trees, shrubs and herbs. Okay, so these are the three categories of plant, and this classification was first time done by Aristotle. Next came the scientist Aristotle itself. Next type of classification, what he did for the animals. Now for plants, we can actually see their sizes and the number of years they grow. What can we do for animals then? In case of animals, he clearly divided them very scientifically into two broad groups. One is called as anamia, and that is with red blood cell, and another one is anemia. Anemia means without red blood cells. So this is one way of classifying the organisms. So plants are classified into trees, herbs and shrubs. Okay. In case of animals, what he did, he classified into animals with red blood cells. I think I need to change the color of the pen, right? Let me take pink, okay? So he classified them animals with red blood cells. Okay. Animals with red blood cells. Yeah. And animals without red blood cells. Isn't it nice? Animals without red blood cells. So there are two types of organisms whose color of the blood is red. Okay, the lal rang, the red color of the blood. We say na. So on that we have the mammals, lizard, birds and fishes. The color of the blood of these organisms are red. So animals with red blood cells are called as anamia. So you can write it down over here. ENAIMA. These are the organisms which Aristotle classified. And then animals without red blood cells. If you cut those organisms also, you will find out there is no color of the blood. It is whitish because they do not contain hemoglobin on them. So it is like, one very basic criteria or morphological characters when some organism is having a hemoglobin molecule and which do not have hemoglobin molecule. Isn't it a great idea to classify the animal kingdom like this? Yes, at that time when Aristotle did this, yes, this is a very great discovery. Okay, so which are the animals are there which do not have a red blood cells? Those are insects and the jellyfishes. And what he called it as? He called it as anima. Okay, anemia and anima are the two names he was given for this. Animals with red blood cells, animals without red blood cells. Okay. So this was a very great contribution of Aristotle. But this was not enough. Some better way of classification was required because all the plants cannot be put together on the basis of trees, shrubs and herbs. All the animals at the same time cannot be put together into having a character called as having red blood cell or not having a red blood cell. That is not good. So a need of proper classification system was still required. Next scientist came as Linnaeus, Carolus Linnaeus. We have studied about Carolus Linnaeus' contribution in the previous chapter. He was the first scientist who started about binomial nomenclature, that is two way of naming an organism, right? So Carolus Linnaeus came with the next type of idea, that is he called it as two kingdom system of classification. He completely divided the whole living world into two categories. One are the plants and the other one are the animals. That was great because though they knew at that time also people knew and there was that much knowledge was there that which are animals, which are plants. But to classify them, that idea was first time given by Carolus Linnaeus. What he did, he classified the whole living world into two kingdoms. First kingdom is Plantia, that is plants, and the second kingdom is Animalia, those are animals. So basically we are classifying the organisms in two parts, plant kingdom and animal kingdom. This is called as two kingdom classification system. Now before I tell you still more further about how classification is done and what are the different modes of classification. I want to put you some light on this matter now, that what is the importance of classification. Sometimes in exam they ask this, what are the importance of classification? So at that time you can take down these points and write it in your exam. The importance of classification is, it is not possible to study every organism, right? Can you study each and every organism on the earth? Okay, you are interested in, for example, you are interested in birds. You love to watch birds and their characteristics, the way they fly, the food habit, the morphology, where they stay, so many things. For example, you like it, like those organisms to study. Now, is it possible for you to study about each and every bird on the whole planet? It is really not so easy to study about each and every bird, right? You can choose one particular area and can study about them. But, going all over the world and studying, it's not, I should not say it's impossible, but it's quite a tough task, right? So what you can do is, you can study about few birds and check that which are the birds under that category having the similar characteristics. Take any organism as such in your example. If you like, for example, fishes, you can check different varieties of fishes, their classification and so on. If you like the angiosperms or the flowers, or if you like one typical type of flower and you want to see that where and all they are growing. It is not possible as it is almost impossible to study each and every organism present on the earth. So what you can do is, we can check at this point how can we gather the information about this, and for that we need the classification system. So it is not possible to study every organism. Study of one or two organisms group is rather easier. Instead of studying everything, you are studying one group of organisms and you are telling that all other organisms are having the similar characteristics. Did you understand what I am telling? So that is why classification system is very much important. Okay. Then we have this classification system helps us to identify a new organism. When any new organism is identified, at that time you need to put it somewhere, right? Which organism is this? Is it a plant or is it an animal? Or how am I going to classify the organism? What are the characteristics it's showing? Does it have, if it is an animal, does it have a fur? Does it have a feather? Is it a warm-blooded? Is it cold-blooded? There are so many taxonomic aids are there which helps us to identify a new organism. So classification is very much required because we need to identify a new organism. Okay. Classification also helps in knowing the relationship amongst different group of organisms. Classification also helps us to know the relationship, how we are related to each other, or does we have any evolutionary relationship among one organism with the other. We say that humans are primates. We are the ancestors, like our ancestors were apes, or the monkeys and chimpanzees and gorillas and orangutans. All these organisms were, ancestors of us. From them, humans slowly evolved. You will be studying about evolution in 12th standard. That time we'll come to know about this in detail, in depth. So now, when I say that classification helps in knowing the relationship amongst different group of organisms. So are these groups are related or they are completely unrelated to each other? To know about this, classification system is very much important. Okay. So as the first point, why do we need classification? Because classification, it is not possible to study all the organisms present on the Earth's surface. That is why classification is needed. It helps in identification of new organism. Classification helps in knowing the relationship among organisms. What is the relationship? Do we have any relationship with another organism or not? All these things will become clear with classification. The organism of past cannot be studied without a proper system of classification. Now, I hope you know that some of the organisms has become extinct on the Earth's surface. They are no more, like dodo, like the dinosaurs, like some of the birds. Those birds are not present on the Earth's surface. Those dinosaurs are also not there.